This is EntreEd Talk, the podcast for entrepreneurial educators by entrepreneurial educators. We are your hosts, Toi Hershman and
Amber Ravenscroft. This podcast is created by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, or EntreEd for short.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to EntreEd Talk. We're so excited. A couple weeks ago, Toi had the opportunity to interview me because we realized that we hadn't talked a lot about our own backgrounds. And so this time we are switching it up and I will be interviewing Toi. And so I'm going to quickly go into her bio and then we will dig into some of the deeper secrets of Toi's professional past as we move forward through this episode. So you all know Toi as the co-host of EntreEd Talk. She is very passionate about schools and communities, working with education leaders to build entrepreneurship culture within schools. She is a regional coordinator with the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education's America's Entrepreneurial Schools and Colleges Initiative, or EntreEd's initiative, and combines the engineering and education background she has to bridge gaps between schools and the real world. She has worked as a teacher and an administrator, as an engineer in the energy sector, and as a project manager and instructional designer for professional development and trainings in entrepreneurship and STEM areas. She works with teachers and educators across the country, helping to incorporate an entrepreneurial mindset shift and philosophy within their schools. She's an instructional project manager and instructional designer with more than 16 years of experience. She's worked extensively in planning, developing, and managing cross-functional teams on various curriculum projects. She's an analytical and conceptual thinker who effectively partners with stakeholders and subject matter experts to assess opportunities, facilitate strategic design, and drive successful implementation in the learning space. So just reading that bio, you are exceptionally entrepreneurially minded. So I'm really excited to dig into this. And I'm sure you're a little bit scared of my questions, but I'm excited.
I'm not scared at all. Actually, I really should fix that bio. It's very, I don't know.
No, your bio is great. I like all the words. It has all the good words.
Many words.
No, I think it's perfect, honestly. And it's really, actually, I think it really showcases your really wide range of expertise, which I'm excited to dig into because I don't think a lot of people know a lot of what you have done in the past. And so I'm excited.
I'm Batman.
There you go, everyone. We've already revealed it.
We're done.
But I do want to kick off. Usually we start with this question related to, how did you get to where you are? But I'm switching it up a little bit. And I want to talk about, we already said you're Batman, but what is your spirit animal?
My spirit animal. I'm not really even sure what a spirit animal means.
Me neither, but let's pretend we do.
When anyone's ever asked me about my favorite animal, I have to go with shark, even though it's not a mammal. Because they're very misunderstood. That's my spirit animal.
That's so, I'm not surprised at all because that's great. I love that. I always like to ask these random questions to people because I think you learn a lot about them. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Like they're very misunderstood, but they're also so, they're like the king of the water. So yeah, interesting. Hello, everyone. Welcome to EntreEd Talk, where we're talking about sharks, but we just ended Shark Week. But okay, back to our normal conversation. What did you want to be when you grew up? Because I know a little bit about your background, but how did you get to where you are today, where we're so closely working together?
Well, I don't know that I can explain all of that in the space of 24 hours, but I actually, for the longest time, funnily enough, I wanted to be a marine biologist and study sharks.
There we go.
And I had a biology teacher that told me that at best I would make about $14,000 a year and that I wasn't that good at biology. So I kind of just let that go. I'm not so sure that was a good decision or not, but so I ended up never really knowing what I wanted to be when I grow up. I still don't, incidentally. So if our audience wants to comment, if you have any ideas.
I think that's so important, though. I want to debrief on that afterwards, but yeah, keep going.
So I'm only asking little kids what they want to be when they grow up because I'm looking for ideas. I was very good in physics. So later in high school, I took a physics class and my teacher was like, wow, this is really good. And I said, well, should I go into physics? And he goes, oh, no, you don't want to be a teacher. So the whole history of people telling me what I do, what I want to do. But he said, why don't you be a mechanical engineer? So I was applying for college. I was undecided. And so kind of like you, it was like, I don't really even know what that means. So I did that, and I got my degree in mechanical engineering, and it was really hard. And I went to a very large party school, and I didn't party at all, maybe once. I skipped football games to study and got a really, really good job in nuclear power when I graduated. And so I worked in Charlotte in North Carolina for a while, kept kind of just switching jobs and finding cool jobs in engineering that I ended up not liking, and doing all kinds of side projects and bartending and selling real estate, and all the while kind of like you, I was kind of like an Amber in a way. So I was doing like all these other jobs. And then I was working for a fiber optics company out of Philadelphia and driving down to Washington, D.C. on 9/11. And heard this thing happening on the radio. The highway was closed. Everything was crazy. And I went west out. I couldn't get home. I couldn't get to where I was going. So I went west to my parents out in rural Maryland. And while I was kind of hanging out there for a few days, my mom's a teacher. I was like, you know what? I kind of want to see what teaching is like. And I went to substitute teach. And the very next day they said, we have this full-time position. Do you want it? Because my background was math and science, right?
Yeah.
An easy one to get a job. And so I started teaching and just kind of stayed in that realm for a little while. And eventually I wasn't all the way west in Maryland yet. So when I finally moved all the way west, I got my administration master's and became a administrator, and moved into West Virginia as an administrator, and met Jean, who I've been with ever since. And then a few years later, I had a child and could not work the hours I was working. You know those baby commercials where they say first kid, and like you're crazy,
like second kid,
and like you're like disinfecting everything with wipes, and that was exactly what happened to me. My husband and I laugh our butts off. You know, plug for Love's diapers. Good job on your ad campaign. Spot on. So I had the first kid, and I was the monster that ate Manhattan. I had the second kid, and it was a lot easier. I was a lot calmer. But I left my administration job in that time and started consulting and started working with Jean and doing random acts of entrepreneurial and engineering and STEM work. So, and then, that was about 10 years ago. Or 9 years ago.
I have so much to unpack here. Okay. I mean, this is like, okay. Oh, first off, I do want to say that I think that your entrepreneurial spirit is inherently there when you say like you still don't know what you want to be when you grow up, because I say that all the time either. Like people are like, what do you do? Like, what do you see yourself doing? And I'm like, I don't know yet, because I think that's like the world is our oyster. And that's just kind of this idea that we constantly see new opportunities. And so we can't say exactly what we're going to do because we'll figure it out as we build it. So I love that, because I really think it's important that we don't like laugh at that, because I think it's a really different mindset to have, honestly.
But up until I really met and started working with Jean, incidentally, folks, Jean is the executive director of EntreEd, and he's awesome. If you ever have a chance to work with him, do it. It's a great. So, and really until I met Jean, I was pretty sure I was crazy. And my parents were pretty sure I was also crazy. And then when I met Jean and got introduced to people like Betty Young and Beck and all of the people that we work with, you talk to Betty, it's the same weird winding road that we've all gone down, because ultimately I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset, but I've always had to play it really safe. I haven't ever really been able to jump off an entrepreneurship cliff and hold on for dear life, hoping that I have a friend who's an amazing entrepreneur, and he's like, my whole life I've gone from zero to hero. Yeah. From nothing to $1 million and back again. And I can't do that. I
right, you have a family,
have to have some level of security. But I so believe in entrepreneurship and kids and experience it, and I hope that my kids take that. I hope that I'm in a position to let my kids take that risk when the time comes and go out on a limb and not worry that they're going to.
I love that. And I think that's, everybody we talk to, that's so apparent, like that winding road that you described. And literally just listening to your story about like how you were working in nuclear power and then you were taking on all these different engineering jobs and just the trajectory that you had. And then on 9/11, I didn't realize it was actually on 9/11 that you were driven to, like, that's literally that day just changed your path completely. And you just followed it. And I think that is also something that takes a lot of, for better or for worse, takes a lot of balls to do that. And so I really appreciate that. I do want to talk about, because I think that your background in engineering really suits well for this kind of transition. So can you talk a little bit about like how you think that helped you? Was there a similarity between engineering and entrepreneurship that you feel, or was it completely different worlds?
The way that I was taught it was phenomenal, but it was not entrepreneurial at all.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, if you did, and I started grad school also in engineering, but then ended up taking a job. It was more money than I knew existed at the time, so I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I might glow in the dark later, but okay, let's do this weird thing. But and there was more entrepreneurship sort of, I was starting to see that in the master's level program in engineering. And it's funny because I'm doing my doctoral research now and there are a lot of studies coming out of engineering departments with entrepreneurship and engineering and even University of Pittsburgh, because I was just looking at on their website, they have a whole program in entrepreneurship for engineers. So it's kind of cool to see that that's happening, because mine was it was a great education and it taught me so much. Like even if I never ever used the degree, it just what it taught me about my ability to learn things and ability to solve problems was phenomenal. Like there's always a solution to a problem. Always. And but it was very much in isolation with the focus of there are so many giant companies out there. You need to get, a job with one of these corporations and then grow and, go inside the corporation. That was just my focus. I was going to work for some big company, Exxon, Price Waterhouse, I don't know.
So, that's interesting though, that you mentioned that it's shifting. And I think that's really important because we talk about this a lot when we talk about like STEM and how as that's a growing initiative in K-12, like it has to bring entrepreneurship with it. So I know you've done a lot of work in both of those spaces. So can you chat about that for a little bit? Like, why is that crucial? Because we know it is, but like for people that are listening, why?
Well, it's something that you and I scream this at schools all the time. It's funny that you could even go through an engineering program and not really think about the entrepreneurship component, but that's what happens in schools because we do this stuff in silos and you can't really be innovative without being entrepreneurial. It just, the two things are really it's really the same thing. And I think it just gets kind of, the line is very blurry, but we try to put a line there, and we try to say, okay, you're working as an engineer, you're working in STEM, or you're doing, and that's this technical stuff. And then, if you want, you could go take a business class later. But they're one and the same, because I don't know a real entrepreneur. I'm sure there's some out there, but I don't know like a real full-fledged go get 'em entrepreneur that knew anything about, about marketing or business, or not to slam those things, but even when you have a business degree and you go out to be an entrepreneur, you're going to get stuff thrown at you that you've never even experienced. You're not going to just, I have an MBA, so now I'm good. Yeah. Everything's going to be smooth sailing. That's just not reality. And I mean, you just never know. And so when it's hard to encapsulate, but when you have like an engineering, if you go get an engineering degree or you work as an engineer, you're tackling problems all the time. And you get this mindset of I'm capable of solving problems. So, give me the next. And that's the same mindset that you get in entrepreneurship. And a lot of times they're the same problems. If you have a technical problem that you can solve, great, but then you're going to get some other problem that you can't, and vice versa. Someone's going to understand how to schedule employees, and you're not, it's that mindset of, I know I'm going to have problems. Do I have a compelling goal worth tackling them?
Yeah.
And if I do, then I'm going to figure it out.
I love how you frame that around like the problem seeking and problem framing, and that whole concept is how it's so aligned between STEM and entrepreneurship, because we, like you said, we preach this till we lose our voice, but I don't think it's clicked at like a national level yet. And I think it's making progress. I mean, I think even firsthand, we've seen the growth of this kind of focus, but
I think, to me, and we've seen I've seen schools where this works wonderfully, but it's really hard. Schools have, not the fault of the teachers or anyone. It's just schools have designed themselves, and because of all the layers of bureaucracy, it's hard to undesign it.
Yeah.
But we're designed in these silos. You have a math teacher, and you have a English teacher, and by the time you get to middle school, it's like, okay, I'm in English class. Do that, check. Next, but that's not life. And all of those subjects come to blend together. And somehow we fell off the wagon after kindergarten, and we all need to go back to kindergarten because kindergarten does it right. Like, it's unbelievable how we've sort of packaged every subject into these little boxes. And with entrepreneurship, it blows that up. It's like the big mix up. That there's another commercial. I watch too much TV. I think that commercial with the mix up button, and you push it, and
yeah,
it's like, no. But it's, and that's, I think it's really as simple as it's a really simple thing to do. And you and I tell that to schools all the time. This isn't hard. It's entrepreneurship. It's just the way the world works. So mix it up a little bit. Like, go talk to the teacher down the hall and do something collaboratively. And that's it. That's really entrepreneurship. Have kids take a little more ownership. You're not going to get 30 of the same projects, but you're going to get something that's awesome. You're going to get to see what your kids are capable of, and just give the kids the ownership and talk to the teacher down the hallway and mix it up.
I love it. Now, so you're going to like my next question. So everyone who's listening, typically we send questions like days in advance to our interviewees, but Toi had the unfortunate, I sent them this morning and she did not have time to review this. So you already touched on some of this, and I'm sure you'll appreciate it. We talk a lot, and we talk about like the frustrations with your children's education sometimes, and like just having lived in both a teacher and an administrative role. What is the most frustrating thing for you, or the thing that concerns you the most around K-12 if it doesn't change?
If it doesn't change,
yeah, I'm going big pictures, because we always are like, don't get on, but I want you to get on your box a little bit here. Like, what is needed?
I hope my school doesn't listen to this podcast.
It doesn't have to be. No, it doesn't have to be.
Actually, we had back to school night last night, and the principal found me, and she, like, some stuff is starting to happen. So I'm excited. I'm actually, and our teacher this year is one of those teachers. But she's just one of these people that she's going to be awesome. So I think things are starting to shift a little bit there. So, but big picture, if nothing changes, and fundamentally, it honestly, when I look at my children who are 9 and almost 7, it's probably not really going to change that much, at least here for them. We've seen schools, that like the Ted Denter Smith schools that have, they've completely revised they've rethought the entire structure, which is cool. But that's harder for other schools to do. And I don't think it's going to change that much, but I'll take an inch. But I guess my biggest fear is that if it truly doesn't change at all, I don't want my kids to come out of their formal education the way that I did, which was honestly, I mean, I'm very appreciative for my engineering background and all of the things, but I wish I could go back to my 15-year-old self and slap myself around. Because like, and I've said this at so many different conferences and things, no one ever told me that I had a choice.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do, but oh, by the way, you're going to college. And by the way, you got to get a good job with benefits when you get out. And by the way, you have to have a pension plan, No one ever told me that there was another choice. And had somebody told me that, I probably would be swimming with sharks right now.
Right. Yeah.
And probably owning a bait and tackle shop in the Keys somewhere.
Yeah.
But, and maybe not, maybe I'd be right where I am, but it's like not, because I love where I am right now, but that's my fear. And so I try to do that with my own children and with any child that will listen to me. Just to explain that you have so many options that a lot of times the school doesn't let you see. We've talked to teachers, so we know some of the teachers don't understand that really either, because they were on the same trajectory that I was.
Yeah.
Like you want to be a teacher, you're going to college, and then you're getting out of college and you're getting a good job with a pension plan. And so it's hard for teachers to even really understand that themselves. So it's really, that's the biggest fear is kids not understanding that. And then also something that I see that really bothers me, and I don't know if it's just a kid thing or if it's part of the education system, but just kids by like middle school, their creativity seems to be sucked away. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's not there, but they don't get very many opportunities to explore it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's actually discouraged. In fact, a lot of times that just being yourself and being your big weird self and coming up with your own creative ideas or creative stories or creative expression or any of those things. We still have art teachers in schools telling kids that they're terrible at art because they can't draw a bowl of fruit. I mean,
right. Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point now that I'm thinking about it. I'm like,
creativity.
How can you tell anybody you're not good at art when art is your own expression of anything? Like how?
Exactly. But I had a teacher that literally told me I was terrible. I was a terrible artist. And I just took that to heart. And I have communicated that in my life since then. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I started going, wait a minute. It was when my youngest was in a 2-year-old art class, and this art teacher was unbelievable. And we were doing these like weird expressions and like we were emulating all these different artists. And I'm like, holy moly, I can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at least as good as the 2-year-olds. And it was just so cool, like to see that was just somebody's dumb opinion back when I was, 12 years old or something, that I couldn't do art because I couldn't draw, but I can dance and I can sing poorly, but like, it doesn't matter. We tell kids that they're not creative, or we set up the school system so that we don't nurture that. And my own son is a phenomenal writer, and I'm totally biased, but he is truly a phenomenal writer. He was discouraged from creative writing last year. Like it was he, and this is not a kid who goofs off. He finished his work. He's doing some and the teacher's like, no, I don't like that. And you can't do that. And fortunately, that's not the teacher he has now, but why are we doing that to kids? Like,
I'm so interested by this whole conversation now because I'm like reflecting on my own experiences. And like, I know personally, I was one of those people who, always wanted to try to like be like successful and like get good grades. And so I like molded myself to be the cookie cutter image of like what a good student is. And in doing that, I probably did inhibit some of my ability to do creative writing and to like, I don't think I'm good at art, but you can't dictate what is art. Like it is art, it's expression. So it's so interesting that you talk about that, because anytime we try to limit any student's abilities in ways that fit the curriculum or fit the mold, we are like slowly inhibiting their creativity. And I think that's really important. And I'm glad that we kind of got that.
And think about you in school. And I was the same way, the, teacher pleasing, straight A kind of person. Think about in school, how afraid you were, or at least I was, to do something crazy and creative, because what if it's wrong? You know,
would have been that, or like I also would have been like, but what if I'm like embarrassed by somebody? Because it was like this, like people had put this like stigma, right, that you have to be a certain way to be a top student. And so like if I did take a risk and it was wrong, like what if it was, and then it would have been embarrassing. Wow. I'm like really interested thinking about all the systems that have to be at play for this kind of mindset to have been crafted in both of us, and like how long standing they are for them still to be happening to students.
And if you go talk to some seniors, and talk to the AP calculus class, it's amazing. And I kind of started figuring this out when I was an administrator, because I was a career tech administrator.
Which is awesome.
Which was awesome. Honestly, to pick a job, that's a good one. But then I had the baby and things changed. But it was really interesting, the building that I was in, because I had shop and nursing and business and like all your standard ag, all of your career tech classes, and the kids were bussed in all day. So no one had their English class in my building. Right. Like it was very separate, and the kids bussed in from two different high schools, and they were like, they loved it. They were free to do what they liked. I had amazing teachers, but the funniest thing was we had this one class of AP calculus because the college was next door to my building. So the professor would come over to teach AP calculus, and the kids would come in, they would be bussed into the tech center for this. And just seeing the difference between those kids and the other kids in my building was this huge light bulb moment for me. And that's when I started connecting with Jean. That's when it was like, whoa, this is crazy, because those kids, they didn't want to do anything creative. They didn't want to, like, we would take them down to the shop and like see if they wanted to, and other teachers would try to get involved with them, because sometimes they would get stuck there for long periods of time because of the buses and but they were so afraid, and these are the top students, like going scholarship, full rock, kind of the top academic students, and they were like little robots.
Yeah. God, and like I'm getting like chills thinking about my own experiences. And like, I love CTE programs. I think career and technical education, like I think it could truly revolutionize traditional education systems. So here's one for CTE programs, like cheers to you. But now that I'm like reflecting, I'm like, I was a robot until I was like woken up by like an experience. That's so interesting. I did not anticipate this conversation would go this way, but it's concerning. It is. And I hope that the listeners of this podcast kind of view it as concerning as we do, because I feel like it's only like-minded people like us who will make real strides in changing that. So.
Yeah, I hope, like I said, I would love to, something that I get excited about is when and I don't know most of the time if it even connects or resonates or anything, but when I meet a teenager and I tell them a little bit about this kind of stuff, and if I get a teenager's ear for like 10 minutes, I'm like, listen, you need to listen, honey, because I wish somebody had done that with me.
Same.
Not that I regret anything, but it's just, well, I regret not having more to regret, but that's a whole different podcast.
Whole other world.
That's a whole different thing. But I wish that somebody had said, hey, what do you want your life to be like? But nobody really did that. And I don't know that I would have listened if they had, but whenever I get a young person, so watch out, young people, if you see me coming, you're going to get it. I'm like, it's like, I told my stepdaughter the other day, I said, it's like gold in your hand, what you have right now.
Give the world. When we first started, because one of my first projects we talked about on my podcast was that student leadership workshop that really impacted me. And as we grew that, I started to become responsible for college and career readiness because I was like fresh out of college. And they wanted me to talk about like student loans and all those different things that like high school students don't think about. And the original curriculum had like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And as I got more engaged with this program, I'm like, we have to stop asking our kids that. Like, that's so much pressure. I was like, so now I go into those trainings and I'm like, college and career readiness. I was like, you don't have to know anything. You don't have to know a single thing. You just have to know that you have so many opportunities. And I love that that's what we're talking about, because I'm like, I'm just trying to give them that little bit of what you're talking about. Like if I get in front of you, you're going to hear the lecture of the century, but it's worth it, I think. So,
yeah. And it's so many places that message isn't getting there. I mean, I even meet younger adults. Oh man, I gave this poor girl an earful the other day. I was like, oh, I feel bad. Because she just had a baby and she's by herself and she's working at a daycare and she's looking at these other options for work because she doesn't like working there. And I'm like, well, you could start a business and you could do this and you could, and I was just so over, like, it wasn't even on her plate. Like I'm like, but I can help you. You could.
Yeah. You're like, immediately, you need to do this.
Like, give me that baby and let me help you figure this out.
I love it.
You know, and I love the fact that today, more than any other time in our history, it's only going to get easier. The barriers to starting a business are so low. Like I've said in several things, like with $1.99 and a GoDaddy account, you can start a business.
Yeah, literally.
With your couch cushion money, for real. And you just have to want to. And it's not easy. I mean, like to do it is easy. But to, build the business isn't easy, but nothing's easy. College isn't easy. Life isn't easy. And you just have to want to do it. I'm like really pumping myself up right now. I think I'm going to have to go
we're going to have to go. I'm going to the gym after this because I'm like, I need to do something to get some of this like motivation out of my bones. But I also think it's just nice to be around like-minded people. Like, I feel like whenever I have doubts, like you would pump me up. Whenever you have doubt, like we would all pump each other up. And so I also think it's really important that you have your team there to like make sure you always have that hope. Because yeah, I mean, like you said, life is not easy at all. But I do want
to start a landscaping company right now, right? I'm going to go mow the lawn next door.
There's like somebody mowing the lawn out there. It's like, oh, I could always do that. Like, that's not just how our brain operates at this point. But I do, for all the listeners because I think this is a great conversation to have. And I want to give you the opportunity. We always ask this as the final, like, kind of question is like, what is one thing or one resource or one step in the right direction for educators to move into this space? And we already do this at our training, so I'm sure you'll talk about that, but other thing.
I'm not going to say what you want me to say.
Good, don't.
All right. So we tell everybody to just do one thing, which is really a powerful thing when you're trying to shift into, bringing entrepreneurial mindsets to kids. But it's just getting out of your own way, which is kind of like doing one thing. But you have to see some of the stuff that we're talking about to really believe it. Because if you look at entrepreneurship as a subject that you can study, just give up. It's not happening.
I love that.
You have to look at it as a lifestyle. And honestly, I'm not advocating that every kid starts a business. I just want them to know that they can. I want them to know of like all of the possibilities and what you can do if you really want to do something. And, like I mentioned earlier, we tell kids, just stop asking kids what they want to do. Show them that they have an opportunity to do other things. And it can be as simple as doing one student-driven entrepreneurial project or something in your classroom or as simple as just introduce them to the idea of like, give them a strengths test, for Pete's sakes. Like, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Help them explore their strengths and do it before they're in 12th grade.
No,
elementary teachers out there, start letting your kids see what their strengths are and let them do a project that plays to those things. It's really that easy. It's just getting out of your own way. You don't have to be in control. I think that's
no, I love that. I think that's really powerful. I think I'm going to this is my petition for everyone listening, that instead of asking like people or students what they want to be when they grow up, I think we should start asking them, who do you want to be when you grow up, and have that kind of approach. And like, it's all about you as a person and like, what are your interests? Because I wish somebody would have asked me that instead of the other one. And I probably wouldn't have been able to answer it, but it would have made me think about that. And just that thinking would have been movement forward. So for people who want to continue to talk to you, or maybe they have a student that they want you to inspire, how is the best way to get in touch with you? And of course, I mean, we always tag ourselves, but how could people reach you?
Well, if someone does want to have me inspire a student or talk to me about how they can do that, please email me. And it's real easy. It's Toi, but TOI, not Y, TOI at entre-ed.org. Please, no haters. And I respond all hours of the day. So please send me an email. Also, you can go on our website. It's EntreEd.org, entre-ed.org. And pretty much any help button that you push on there should come to me or to Amber or to Megan. So, reach us one way or another, but I would love to connect with anybody in schools and anywhere really that's looking to kind of do a transition and bring some entrepreneurial mindsets into their school, organization, whatever. So please send me an email. I'm working on my, everyone usually gives their Twitters and I am on Facebook, but I am working really hard at beefing up my Twitter. So I am Toi Hershman on those things, but I don't always respond to them. So the email is probably the best.
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
I'm working on it.
You're getting there. Yeah, we're so appreciative. And I think it's so fun interviewing each other. So I hope everyone who's listening thinks so too, because I feel like, just talking to you today and in our conversation around my background, I think we learn a lot about each other. And so I'm really excited and I'm inspired and I'm hyped up. So I hope everyone else is too. And thank you for listening to another episode of EntreEd Talk.
Thanks, everybody.